At some point over the last 20 years, while the world watched China challenge the United States on every possible front, an embarrassing secret remained hidden in plain sight. Every time the Chinese president boarded his official aircraft, he entered American territory, literally. And within the power circles in Beijing, this wasn't just a logistical detail. It was a national humiliation that needed to be resolved at any cost. To understand what's happening now, we need to look at the not-so-distant past, not far back, just to the moment when China decided that being the world's factory wasn't enough. It wanted to be the world's engineer. If you're also passionate about the world of aviation, consider subscribing to the channel and supporting our team. For decades, the Chinese strategy was clear: copy, adapt, dominate. It worked with electronics, it worked with telecommunications, it even worked with high-speed trains. But there was one industry that resisted. A technological barrier so complex, so surrounded by secrets, that even Chinese industrial power couldn't easily penetrate it. Commercial aviation. Because manufacturing a commercial aircraft isn't like manufacturing a smartphone. It's not even like building a rocket. It's something completely different. It's integrating millions of components from dozens of countries, ensuring absolute safety, earning international certifications, and convincing the world that what you've built won't fall from the sky. And for decades, only two names dominated this market: Boeing and Airbus, Americans and Europeans. Together, they control 99% of all large commercial aircraft on the planet. China watched, bought, flew in their planes, but didn't build. And here's the detail few people connect. While Chinese companies manufactured cell phones for the entire world, while Huawei challenged American technological supremacy, while China launched its own space stations, China's president still flew in a Boeing 747-400, an American aircraft made in Seattle. Imagine the symbolism. Every time Xi Jinping traveled to a G20 summit to confront the West to announce the new Silk Road, he boarded a Boeing product, the same Boeing that receives billions in Pentagon military contracts, the same Boeing that's considered a strategic asset of the United States. Within Beijing, this didn't go unnoticed. There was a deep discomfort, a feeling of dependency that wounded the pride of a nation that saw itself as the future of global leadership. And it was from this discomfort that a plan was born. A bold plan, secret, and, as you'll discover, morally questionable. In 2008, in the middle of the global financial crisis, while the United States was trying to save its own economy, China created COMAC, Commercial Aircraft Corporation of China. Officially, it was just a state-owned aviation company, an ambitious but legitimate project. But behind closed doors, there was something more. An industrial intelligence operation. An almost personal mission to ensure that within a few years, China's president would never again need to fly in an American plane.
Picture this: Shanghai, 2008. A gigantic factory emerges from nowhere. Investments in the billions of dollars. The Chinese government didn't just support the project, it was the project. COMAC isn't an ordinary company. It's an instrument of state, a geopolitical weapon disguised as a commercial venture. The mission was clear: create the first Chinese commercial aircraft capable of competing with Boeing and Airbus in the single-aisle jet market, mid-sized aircraft that dominate domestic and regional routes. The first model was the C909. The second model chosen was the C919. But here's where the fascinating and controversial part begins. How do you create, from scratch, a competitive commercial aircraft when you've never built one before? The Chinese answer was simple. You don't create from scratch. You learn from those who already know. And learn in this context is a euphemism. Between 2009 and 2016, something extraordinary happened. Chinese engineers began appearing at Western aeronautical technology companies. Not illegally, not at first glance. Many were legitimately hired. Others came through business partnerships, joint ventures, university exchange programs. But American intelligence reports began to notice a pattern.
Engineers working on sensitive projects at GE Aviation, which manufactures engines for Boeing and Airbus, suddenly appeared in China, working for COMAC. Employees at aeronautical software companies reported suspicious server access. Confidential projects leaked. Technical specifications that took decades to develop suddenly appeared in Chinese prototypes with adaptations. In 2018, a Chinese engineer named Yanjun Xu was arrested in Belgium and extradited to the United States. The charge? Economic espionage. Attempted theft of GE Aviation trade secrets related to composite materials for aircraft turbines. He was the first Chinese intelligence officer extradited to the US, a case that exposed what many already suspected. Behind COMAC's development, there was a massive operation of forced technology transfer. And it didn't stop there. In 2021, another case came to life. A former GE engineer was accused of stealing confidential files on turbine technology. For whom? For a Chinese company linked to COMAC. But here's the brutal irony. While this was happening, Western companies continued doing business with China. GE, Honeywell, Safran, French, all supplied critical components for the C919. Why? Because the Chinese market is too big to ignore. Because the Western companies themselves needed Chinese money. COMAC then became a hybrid creature, a technically Chinese aircraft, but built with brains, engines, and control systems from the West. And within Beijing, this was simultaneously a victory and a defeat. Here's what they don't tell you in official statements. The C919 made its first commercial flight in May 2023. It was a victory celebrated by the Chinese Communist Party as proof that China had broken the Western duopoly. Chinese state newspapers called it a historic moment. Xi Jinping called it an achievement of technological self-determination. But when independent engineers analyzed the C919's technical data, the truth was different. Of all the C919's critical systems, only the fuselage and parts of the structure are genuinely Chinese. This isn't a Chinese plane. It's a plane assembled in China. And here's the revelation that makes everything crumble. China tried for years to develop its own engine for the C919. The project was called CJ1000A. Billions were invested. But to this day, 15 years later, the engine still hasn't been certified for commercial use. It's not reliable enough. It's not efficient enough. It doesn't pass international safety tests. And can you imagine why? Because building a modern aircraft engine is one of the most complex feats of human engineering. It's not something you copy and paste. And here we arrive at the final irony, the one that closes the circle. In 2024, Xi Jinping still flies in a Boeing 747-400. He doesn't fly in the C919, the plane that was created specifically to free him from this humiliation. Still isn't reliable enough to carry China's president. Yes, but according to reports, COMAC will scale up to other larger projects and then... Let's talk numbers, because numbers don't lie. The C919 entered commercial service in May 2023. As of October 2024, fewer than 10 units were operating on commercial routes. No international airline has bought the plane. None, yet. Compare that to the Boeing 737 MAX. Even after the safety scandals and fatal accidents that killed 346 people, Boeing has delivered more than 1,000 units since the MAX returned to service in 2020. And compare it to the Airbus A320neo, which delivers about 50 aircraft per month.
COMAC has more than 1,200 registered orders for the C919. Impressive, right? But here's the detail. Almost all are from Chinese airlines. state-owned or government-controlled companies. They're not free market orders. They're political orders. No major European, American, or Asian airline outside China has made a firm order for the C919. And it's not due to xenophobia. It's for three clear technical reasons. 1. International certification. 2. Support and maintenance. 3. Economic efficiency. The C919 consumes, on average, 12 to 15% more fuel per seat than an equivalent Airbus A320neo. For an airline, this is huge. It means millions of dollars more in operating costs per year per aircraft. The C919 is less efficient, has shorter range, and costs almost the same as Western competitors. Where's the competitive advantage? The C919 wasn't made to compete in the global market. Not yet. Maybe never. Or at least not in the medium term. It was made for a much more fundamental reason: technological sovereignty. China doesn't want to depend on Boeing and Airbus forever. It doesn't want to be at the mercy of American sanctions. It doesn't want, in a future trade or military war, for its planes to be grounded because the United States cut off the supply of parts. And this is the part the West often doesn't understand. China doesn't play the free market capitalism game. It plays the long-term state capitalism game. It can lose money for decades if it means strategic autonomy in the end. COMAC may never turn a profit. It may never truly compete with Boeing and Airbus. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that in 20 years, when China has perfected its engines, when it has accumulated operational experience, when it has built its own support network, it won't need the others anymore. And that's the real war. It's not about selling more planes. It's about who controls the critical technologies of the 21st century. So where does this leave us? Is the C919 a fraud? No. It's a first step. Did COMAC steal technology? The evidence strongly suggests yes, but Western companies were also complicit by supplying critical components, knowing that China would use them to build a competitor. Will China's president fly in a C919 soon? Probably not, but not because the plane isn't reliable, because symbolism matters more than safety. But here's the question no one is asking, and that may be the most important of all. What if China succeeds? What if in 10 or 15 years, COMAC truly masters engine technology? What if the C929 and even the C939, the next model, a twin-aisle jet to compete with the Boeing 777 and Airbus A350, is genuinely competitive? What if China, in fact, breaks the Western duopoly not through quality, but through brutal pricing and unlimited state support? What happens when half the world's planes are Chinese? Because this is the lesson of recent technological history. China always starts by copying, always starts poorly, but it learns fast, very fast. The answer isn't in the skies. It's in the decisions being made right now in closed rooms in Washington, Brussels, and Beijing.